Alright, hello, and welcome to
Hello.
episode 5.
Yay, episode 5.
Episode 5 of Literarily Dead. We've made it 5 episodes.
I am really excited about that, actually.
Yeah, we made it over a month. We did it!
Woo!
Yay, high 5! Alright, so for this week, we decided to do Death in the Family.
So, trigger warning, death, and on my part, a lot of violent, gruesome, there's some racism, there is some attacks on women, like, just be prepared for my part, because it gets really, really violent.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're going violent.
I'm a little excited to hear about it, though.
You should be.
I know that's not entirely a good thing to say, but I'm excited to learn about what this bad thing is that you have to tell us about.
Yeah, so.
But
this ain't Disney Channel, kids.
No, definitely not Disney Channel, if that wasn't obvious from all the fucking profanities. But, we did the random decider again, and so we did the random decider, and it said I should go first again.
Which is fine.
Yeah, it's fine. So I'm free-balling it today. I did do my research.
Oh, good.
I have done lots of research over the subject, but my notes aren't in front of me, so...
So my only guess this whole week is from Lizzie Borden House, and I know that's not what you're doing.
No, it's not right. If it was Lizzie Borden House, I would have notes, and I would have a shit ton of notes. But no, it's not the Lizzie Borden House this week. So for Death in the Family, I decided that I wanted to talk about memento moris.
All right.
Yes.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, so memento mori is a Latin term for remember that you're going to die, or something along those lines.
All right then.
Yeah, it was a term used by the Greeks and the Romans, and it's followed through a lot of cultures. But specifically, what I want to talk about today is memento moris are a bunch of different things. Usually, they're like little things that people use to remind themselves of a lost loved one.
Okay.
So you have, especially during the Victorian era, and this is specifically what I'm going to be talking about, you have like lockets filled with hair, like they'll take a lock of hair from their loved one.
Yeah, we have those at Susan B. Anthony House. We have locks for hair.
Yeah, exactly. So you have locks of hair. Sometimes if they're, especially for children, they'll keep teeth. I know that's a little weird.
Morbid.
But what I'm specifically going to talk about now is beyond that, beyond the memento moris, beyond those things, are morning portraits and postmortem photography.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and this actually won't take up too much time because, there's a lot of things to describe with postmortem photography, but there's been books filled with this sort of information. But postmortem photography is exactly what it suggests. Postmortem is after death. So especially when, it all started with the morning portraits, where basically when somebody would die, they would lie them out and they would have a painter come and paint them. And usually these portraits didn't have, like, the painter was unknown. And a lot of these portraits actually don't still exist because they weren't, like, favorable. Like, they're too big to carry around. You couldn't really keep these in a locket. And they were far less favorable than, say, keeping a lock of hair or something like that. Plus, I'm pretty sure they were expensive if you're going to go ahead and get an entire fucking painting commissioned of your dead loved one. But when photography came around, it was so easy to call in a photographer. There were people who made their entire businesses off of this because lots of people have lots of different reasons for wanting to keep a photo of your dead loved one after they've passed. And it was very popular among people who had kids that they had lost. Mm-hmm. Because, especially this was the Victorian era, like, right when photography was starting to, like, get more commercial and boom a little bit more.
Hey, Kodak!
Yay, Kodak! Because with your traditional, like, funeral purposes, the family would lay their loved one out in the parlor. Like, that was the entire purpose of the parlor, really. Not the entire purpose of the parlor. The parlor was basically for meeting guests, but this was, like, one special purpose of it.
Right.
And that's why we use the term living room now, is because we've moved past using the parlor for a funeral. And a lot of people don't really refer to some houses have a living room and a parlor, and the parlor's for more special occasions.
Yeah.
But so this was a special occasion that they used the parlor for. So they would have the casket laid out, or they'd have the body laid out on a bed or the couch, and then you would try and call in a photographer as quickly as possible before rigor mortis set in, because the photographer might want to rearrange them. They might want to, do a whole lot of things.
So morbid.
It is pretty morbid, but at the time, it's like especially if they were kids, you didn't have much to remember them by.
That's true.
Like, especially if you were poor, and you didn't get a photograph of your 3-year-old before they passed away due to dysentery or pneumonia or something. After they died, you called up the photographer and you're like, hey, I need something to remember this kid by. Please come by and take their photo before we bury them.
Right.
So it was something that basically everybody did, and you would have to try and keep the body as preserved as possible, especially if you lived out in the country, and it would take a few days for somebody to get to you. So you can imagine how some of these scenes were beyond what the photo was. But, and, like I said, this is going to be a very small portion, but,
That's alright. I got time.
Yeah, but, so this even lasts up until today. It kind of faded out as we started to treat death as more of a taboo thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not really taboo, but something that wasn't really to be talked about / should be hidden away.
Mm-hmm.
So, because during the Victorian era, it was out there, you had a mourning session, you wore black for so long, and then you kind of moved on with your life, and after you lost a loved one. Now it's a very private affair. You do it in a separate house. Funeral homes are a thing. You no longer have the dead in your own parlor. Because, I guess a lot of us don't have room for that either.
That's true.
Because, if you're 20-something and you lose a friend, you can't really keep them in your apartment for a brief amount of time.
That's very true.
But some people are actually moving back to this. While I was doing the research for this, there are several people who are choosing to have this sort of, display on, where they're like, okay, I'm gonna die, and I want to be put in my own parlor for a little bit. And then the family, takes their, very plain oak box and goes and buries them after they do some postmortem photography. Yeah, there's a documentary about it right now, too. I haven't watched it yet, but I want to. Yeah, I saw clips of it while I was doing the research.
That's so strange.
I don't know. I think it's a little...
But that's a societal thing, of course.
Yeah, it's a societal thing now. But also, like I said, the only, with the photos being the only thing to remember your loved one by, especially for kids, it's getting more popular now again today. Hospitals have 1 or 2 photographers on call for parents who have stillbirths or who lose the kids several days after their birth. And it's not really funny. I wouldn't say it's the funny thing of it, but most parents who choose not, if you lose the baby, the nurse will come up and be like, do you want a picture of your child?
Yeah.
And most of the parents who actually go through with this are like, you would have thought I wouldn't have wanted it, but it was the best decision I ever made. Because they're like, we had such little time with this kid that we essentially carried to birth, and it very much grounds the experience that they had, and they proved that it was real, and they still have that connection to the child that they lost.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, my heart is breaking.
I know, it's really sad to think about, and it's so, there's the one place that I know of, especially if you know ahead of time that you're going to have a stillbirth, you can go ahead and contact them ahead of time, is the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. I always want to add society behind it, but it's not. I don't think it's the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep Society, but they're a group of, I think, free photographers, or they're photographers who volunteer their time for this because they want parents to have this experience. Yeah.
That's so sweet.
It is. It's very sweet. And honestly, I think postmortem photography should really boom again. I think it would be, because I mean, I think it's a very cultural thing not to take photos at a funeral anymore, or to take photos of the deceased loved one. But it's
I got in trouble one year when my cousin died a few years ago, and I took a picture at his funeral. And my aunt was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, is this not a thing? I guess it's not a thing."
No, I mean,
I get why it's not a thing, but at the same time,
I think a funeral is supposed to be like a celebration of life. And I really think that taking photos at a funeral to remember that moment in time would have been, like, is a good thing. I think it's a good thing because you get family and friends together that maybe haven't seen each other in so long. Like, honestly, thinking back on it, I wish I had taken photos at my dad's funeral, even though it was a really shitty experience for me.
yeah.
Because I feel like it would have grounded the experience. Having a visual.
Yeah, no, it is. We took photos at my friend Mikey's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
It was all his friend group got together, and his family got a picture of all of us, and we do yearly brunches all together, all the friends and all the family.
Mm-hmm.
We just come together on the day he died, just as an anniversary thing, and we all take photos together. And his family loves seeing it because they love seeing the support group that he had when he was alive.
That's gonna make me cry. Yeah, I think, like, photography is such an important thing, and it's a very important medium, and it shows, like, through that medium, we can show what we've lost and what we intend to bring forward into the future.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do this, like, it's a very beautiful thing. I really think so. Some of the Victorian photos are a little creepy, though, because
I've seen them. They're freaking creepy.
I mean, because some of them would paint eyes onto the eyelids if they couldn't keep the eyes open. I mean, a lot of children died from dehydration if they had, like, dysentery or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them are very gaunt, very, like, they would put lipstick and things. And in a black and white photo, that makes the lips look really fucking dark.
Yeah.
But it's a good medium, and I really think that it's a very good purpose for photography.
Yeah.
And I think we could do a whole lot today with the technology that we have to remember it even more.
Yeah, because I feel like Facebook photos aren't enough.
No.
Facebook videos, I just feel like it doesn't do enough justice.
And I think it really finalizes somebody's life, to be honest with you. Like, you always have these images of you, especially now with social media and photography being the way it is, you have images basically from somebody's birth to their death, like right up until their death, but you don't have that little sliver of time, and then you just see their family and friends continue on.
Right.
Like, that's just like a missing block. Like, you're not supposed to talk about it. And I really think that we should talk about it, because talking about death is a very healthy thing.
Destigmatizing death.
Yes, we need to destigmatize death.
That's another podcast we can do, destigmatize death.
I mean, yeah. And there's a lot of people working out there to do that sort of thing. There's Caitlin Doty, who is I know she was a cremationist. That's probably not the right word for it. But she's famous on YouTube. And she's the death lady, and she talks about destigmatizing death.
She took your title.
Huh?
She took your title.
No, she had it first. She had it first. I look up to her. She's darling. But, yeah, there's her, and there's several other people who are, like, out there working. Our old classmate, Hannah Stower, is another one of those people. You don't remember her? Oh.
Flash wasn't there.
You weren't there. Oh, yeah, it was
I wasn't there yet.
Anyway, but Hannah's working hard at it, too. And then there's the Mutter Museum, and a lot of other places that are kind of bringing this talk of death forward, which is something I still think is very important, because we have so much taboo around death and cemeteries and things like that, that it's like we have dark tourism and we have ethics behind it,
Right.
But we don't really open the gates to have a conversation half the time.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's going to be my part. But yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I hope you learned a little bit about...
I did.
Yeah. All right, so it's your part. I'm so excited.
Okay, so when we were discussing doing this topic,
Mm-hmm.
first thing that came to my mind were Disney movies and how the mother was never there because she had died and there was a stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, what the fuck is wrong with Disney? Why is the mother always dead?
Uh-huh.
So I went right to the inspiration for most Disney movies, the Grimm fairy tales.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. So as always, we're going to start with a little history about the Brothers Grimm.
Okay.
Who they were real people.
Uh-huh.
So their names were Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm. Jacob was the oldest and he was born in 1785,
Mm-hmm.
and Wilhelm was born in 1786. They were the second and third eldest of 9 children, but Jacob was the eldest living child.
Okay.
And Wilhelm was the second eldest living child. They moved to a town where their father was the district magistrate. So this means they were like super freaking wealthy.
Oh my god.
They were super influential in this town and very prominent.
Mm-hmm.
But then, and because of their prominence, they were taught by private tutors, but they were brought up in a very strict Lutheran religious household.
Okay.
Their father died from pneumonia in 1796, which left the family impoverished because there's no money coming in. And at only 11 years old, Jacob had to take on the adult responsibilities along with Wilhelm.
Okay.
Their aunt actually paid for them to have a private education. So they were able to go off to a private school, and they were taught along high-born or upper-class students.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where they really saw a prejudice
Yeah.
against lower classes. And they weren't given as much attention as the upper classes, but they both graduated top of their class.
Oh my god.
Jacob in 1803 and Wilhelm in 1804. Hold on. No. They both attended the University of Marburg
Mm-hmm.
right after, where they became fascinated with German folklore. So this is like the origins of freaking Grimm fairy tales.
Yeah.
So Jacob, at this time, as the oldest and the head of household, was financially responsible for his mother and siblings. So because of this, after he graduated college, in 1808, he became the head librarian.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, librarian life. Actually, the court librarian
Mm-hmm.
for the King of Westphalia. This is a time when Germany isn't united. It's just a bunch of sovereign German countries
Mm-hmm.
that all speak German. So this is one of those areas or provinces. And then he became the librarian of Kassel, which is the province that he originally lived in.
Oh.
But after their mother died, Jacob was fully responsible for his siblings, but was able to pay for his brother Ludwig to study at art school.
Aw.
Wilhelm Grimm married a family friend named Henriette.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob never married, but he lived with his brother and sister-in-law until he died.
Oh.
So, I found this so interesting. So I never knew the origins of the fairy tales.
Uh-huh.
I always thought these guys just like had this really dark imagination.
No, it's a collection.
It is a collection, so they didn't think themselves as authors, but rather collectors of literary history.
Shit. Man, that they're curators.
They are curators. They're curators of literature. Like, stop. Okay. They became desk workers eventually who wanted to record the oral German tradition and stories. This is actually when they're in college working.
Mm-hmm.
So the brothers relied on friends and others, and they really talked to the peasants about different stories and folklore and legends around the area. And occasionally they got the written document, but it was really all oral history. Jack Zipes. So, side note, in 2014,
Uh-huh.
the Oxford Press published the first edition Brother Grimm's Stories
Mm-hmm.
for the first time in English. It was translated by Jack Zipes, who said, "The more they began gathering tales, the more they became totally devoted to uncovering the, quote, natural poetry, or natterpose, of the German people, and all their research was geared towards exploring the epics, sagas, and tales that contained what they thought were essential truths about the cultural heritage."
Mm.
About the German cultural heritage. And contributions made by the common people before the stories became extinct. So they're literally curators of oral history.
Oh my gosh.
So the brothers published their stories during the time that the literacy rate in the middle class was on the rise, which gave them a perfect market
Yeah.
to sell books.
Especially fairy tales.
So and they became famous after the publication of the first of 2 volumes of what in English is called Children's and Household Tales in 1812. The second volume was published in 1815. The first volume contained 86 stories and the second had 70. The first edition came under much criticism because the title said that they were children's tales and yet contained content not suitable for children. So this is where my trigger warning comes in. These tales included premarital sex. For example, in Rapunzel, she gets pregnant, which is not in the original stories anymore. In Hans Doom, which has actually been deleted from future editions, it's only in the first edition. A man impregnates a woman just by wishing it. And in The Frog King, the princess spends a night with the suitor after he turns back into a human. All of the sex scenes in the fairy tales were cut for future editions.
Of course.
So the 2nd to the 7th. Child abuse. So we all know Snow White.
Yeah.
There's a story called The Juniper Tree.
Mm-hmm.
A mother decapitates her son as he bends down to eat an apple, then chops up his body, makes it into a stew, and serves it to her husband, who likes it so much he asks for seconds.
Oh my god.
But in the story... Okay, no. However, in Snow White wins the day, and in the end of The Juniper Tree, the boy comes back to life. But in the story of Frau Trude, the title character turns a girl into firewood and then burns it.
Oh my god.
And then there's graphic violence. This
Yeah.
is like the super duper, do not listen to this part if you are triggered by anything. Super duper important that you don't listen to this. So graphic violence, in many of the stories, including Cinderella, stepmother tells her daughters to cut off pieces of their foot because their feet are too big to fit in the gold slipper. It wasn't a glass slipper. It was a glass slipper. In The Six Swans, an evil mother-in-law is burned at the stake. In The Goose Maid, a bride is stripped naked, thrown in a barrel of nails, and dragged down the street. In The Robber Bridegroom, bandits drag a woman to their hideout and make her drink wine until her heart bursts, then chop her body into pieces.
Oh my goodness.
There's incest.
Yeah.
In All Kinds of Fur, a king promises his wife he will only marry someone as beautiful as her, and the only person in the world as beautiful as her is their daughter, who ends up escaping into the wilderness.
Oh my goodness.
The second edition is published in 1819, and it becomes more accessible to the public and more appropriate for children.
Okay, good.
But by the time the brothers were done publishing, there were 7 editions and a total of 210 stories. 40 to 50 of those stories were cut from the original first edition.
Oh my goodness.
So...
That's a hefty amount to cut out.
Yeah.
And you said in 2014 the original version was republished?
Yes, the first edition was republished into English.
Oh my god.
For the first time ever.
It's like I kind of want to read it, but at the same time, that's like...
But at the same time, you really don't.
Yeah.
So this is where we really get into the topic, Death in the Family.
Okay.
So we've all seen the Disney movies where the mother is gone and there's no place, there's just an evil stepmother in her place, but there's an answer for it in the canon text.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first edition stories, like Snow White and Hansel and Gretel, The villain was actually the biological mother.
Oh, really?
Yes. In Snow White, it was her actual mother that hired a huntsman to kill her 7-year-old daughter in the woods and bring back her organs for her to consume. Cannibalism. Another one of the great contents that is not suitable for children.
Yeah.
And it was Hansel and Gretel's biological mother who sent them into the woods because she and her husband were not able to feed them.
Oh, Hansel, that was always...
I thought it was her stepmother in the second.
No.
Oh.
I always thought it was her real mother.
No, I always thought it was stepmother.
Oh,
anyway,
shit.
One of us is right.
One of us is right, yeah.
Unless it was the father the whole time, then we're just fucking up everything. In the second edition, these stories, and many like them, were changed to make it the evil stepmother. And this is because of 2 reasons. The first was because the Grimm brothers held motherhood sacred. They really loved their mother.
Mm-hmm.
They really loved their mother. And the second reason was because of socioeconomic climate of the 18th and 19th centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Women were dying in childbirth, and so the fathers remarried young women who sometimes, depending on the age of the mother and how many children she had, were the same age as the eldest daughter.
Oh my god.
So this created jealousy on behalf of the new stepmother. Thus, it was more honorable for the mother to have died in childbirth than making her into a villain. So that is why the majority of mothers in Disney are dead.
Well, there we go.
Text. So when I was doing my research,
Uh-huh.
I found synopses of other deleted stories
Uh-huh.
that kind of fit into the whole death in the family. Again, trigger warning, really graphic, really gory. The first is called How Some Children Played at Slaughtering. And it sounds exactly as what it contains.
Yeah.
The story starts with 2 brothers who are playing. One plays as a pig and the other a butcher.
Mm-hmm.
The butcher brother slits the throat of the pig brother. When their mother finds the boys, she turns around and kills her son that killed the other son.
Oh my god.
Consumed by guilt, she kills herself. When the father comes home, he finds his whole family dead and dies of a broken heart. Whoever said that fairy tales had happy endings, they're wrong. They're Disney fairy tales that have happy endings.
Well, yeah.
The second story was called The Children of Famine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a family that's just a mother and her 2 daughters living through the famine. And the mother threatens to kill her daughters so that she can eat. They end up laying down to sleep after saying they will sleep until Judgment Day. No one can wake them up, and the mother leaves them never to be seen again. And then just 2 really fun facts about Grimm fairy tales.
Fun facts after those 2 stories.
Fun facts. So after the first edition was published, the fairy characters were changed into other forms. For example, the fairies in Sleeping Beauty, we all love the fairies from Sleeping Beauty. They were actually changed into wise women.
Oh.
And this is because of the Napoleonic Wars. Germany was fighting against France, and the fairies in the stories were reminiscent of French fairy tales.
Oh.
So they had to change it because they didn't want any French influence.
Oh.
Also, much of the magic and other fantastical elements were cut, and Christian proverbs and expressions were added.
Yeah.
In order to make it more accessible to the middle class.
Okay.
And this one isn't really fun. It's just one of those things that you look back in history and you're like, wow. So the Brothers Grimm were anti-Semitic. There are 3 stories that include Jewish characters. The Jew in the Brambles, the Good Bargain, and the Sun Will Bring into Light.
Uh-huh.
And they are awful.
Oh my god.
Completely awful and racist, and it's just terrible. Hitler and the Nazi Party adopted these stories and others as propaganda.
Really?
Yes. They claim that Little Red Riding Hood symbolized Germany suffering at the hands of the Jewish wolf, and that Cinderella was purely Aryan, and that distinguished her from her stepsisters. So they used those 3 Jewish stories to villainize Jews, and then other ones they fit into their Nazi ideals.
Wow.
Brothers Grimm, everyone!
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So that's my section. I tried to fit it in as best I could.
Oh my god, you did it. You did it.
Yeah, so that's probably as dark as I'm ever gonna get.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a roller coaster.
Yeah, that is a roller coaster. And that brings us to the end of our episode.
Yes, it is.
That was Death in a Family. And next week we are doing, what are we doing, Amanda?
Royalty.
Royalty. Oh shit, I gotta find something for that. I don't know
That's gonna be a good one.
Okay.
all the things to choose from.
I'm excited for yours because there's a lot of shit to choose from for literature.
I don't want to disappoint.
You won't disappoint me, especially, oh God, you didn't disappoint me this week.
Oh, I'm glad.
All right, well, that was it, and we'll see you next week.
Hope you enjoyed it. I hope people aren't having mental breakdowns.
I know. It's okay. Bye.